the Christians have this thing, what would Jesus do? Like that's a evangelical principle. They always ask, what would Jesus do in this situation? We know what the Prophet ﷺ would do in any given situation because no prophet is more detailed historically than our prophet. So we know how he dealt with all these various situations that he found himself in. And I would argue, one, that the Prophet ﷺ dealt with all the major human problems that we should be concerned with in the farewell address. The farewell address, which is recorded in a few different iterations, but essentially deals with economic injustice, which is based on usury. And usury is one of the biggest problems on the planet, and nobody wants to talk about it. It's just amazing. The second was racism. He dealt with racism. And what's amazing about that hadith is he said, لا فضل لعربي على عجمي ولا لعجمي على عربي ولا لأسود على أبيض ولا لأبيض على أسود إلا بتقوى. What really struck me about that hadith is he did not collectivize. He said there's no preference of an Arab individual over a non-Arab individual. And there's no preference of a non-Arab individual over. He didn't say لا فضل للعرب على العجم. He did not collectivize. He brought it down to where the problem is, in the individual heart. And we will not get rid of racism until we recognize that this is an individual problem. It can have collective realities when large groups are racist. So it does have, but always within those groups are good people. So in the history of America, you have constantly white Americans that were fighting against racism, many of them having terrible lives because of it. Just horrible lives. And you've always had those people. And then you've had the fence sitters, and then you had the people that were just clearly wrong. But if you collectivize, it's a crime against those individuals amongst that group. And that's why the Quran always, it talks about Bani Israel, it says, minhum min mu'minun, laysu sawa min ahl al-kitab. It's always giving you, look, there's people among them that are good. There's people among them that are decent. Don't collectivize them. So this is really important. Then he said there's no preference of a white man over a black man or a black man over a white man. He went both ways. He didn't just say, because the problem then was, the white against the black. That's been the problem on this planet for a long time. Color is, varna in Hindu, which means caste system, means color in Sanskrit. So this has been a human problem for a long time on this planet. And you will find in many, many cultures, before the Europeans ever showed up on the historical scene, this problem existed. And it's an ibtila. It's an ibtila in many cultures. But the ibtila is a test to see what you're made of, what's your metal. And we have people that despite everything just did amazing things. So he dealt with racism, and racism, the word ansariya is a modern word in Arabic. Racism is a species of arrogance. It's kibr. The real disease is arrogance, to think you're better than another person, especially for something as stupid as the color of your skin. I mean, that's just stupid. It really is. And then you have, it's just crazy. You've got these white people that do all these things to turn brown. And then you've got black people doing all these things to turn white. I don't know, it's very odd. But that is just this is called an accident in philosophy. It's not an essence. It's not an essential quality. Because it can change. I can go out in the sun and turn dark. And somebody who has black skin can literally lose their pigmentation and turn white. Does that change their essence? No. And so that's where Islam looks at the essence of people and what's the quality of, the content of their character. What are they made of? You haven't gotten this religion yet, if you've still got that. But he recognized him as a believer. So there people have things to do. We're evolving. And we have to allow for people to evolve. The idea that somebody was a racist 30 years ago and that means he's a racist today, that's criminal. It's criminal because people evolve. And so that's it. And then he dealt with sexism. And he said, your women are in a compromised situation. And women are compromised. people don't like that fact, but when societies break down, it's the women that suffer. You look at the Yazidi women, they were just dragged off. The men were killed and the women were dragged off. You look at the sexual things that are happening. So most women are physically weaker than men, and that's why rape occurs far more often against women for that reason, because it's hard for them to fight off a strong man. And there's women that could throw me up on that mat there and knock me out and do it. That's true. But we're talking about the vast majority of women are compromised physically, so they can be overwhelmed by a man physically. And that's why men have to be taught to honor women and to be chivalrous. And these ideas of removing this from culture is very dangerous. This whole modern movement against masculinity is very dangerous, because masculinity, there's a reason why men are meant to have masculinity. It's to protect and defend. You know, these are important qualities, and this idea of just removing that from society, it's anti-fitra, and it belies inherent impulses in the most noble qualities of human beings. So, but we should see the equality of men and women before the law, before God. And intellectually, there are many women that are far smarter than most men, and vice versa. It goes both ways. Intellect is very close. The difference between male intelligence and female intelligence, by and large, is negligible. It really is, and that's been proven. Women are perfectly competent at learning anything that the vast majority of men can do. There is, however, a very small select group of mathematical geniuses that tend to be male. That's just a fact, that in spatial reasoning, you have a very small select group, but that's not men. That's just a select group. I mean, they're literally could probably fit into this room on the planet. So what, men go around boasting we're smarter than women because of that? It's just stupid. Last thing in that farewell address was he talked about the manipulation of nature, which was the intercalation, you know, taking the natural order of the calendar and changing it. And manipulation of nature is another threat to our species, what we're doing now with all these manipulating genetics and things like that. So I think he summed up all the major problems on the planet: economic injustice, which is class warfare; racial injustice, which is racial warfare; and then gender injustice, which leads to gender warfare. And we have to avoid these wars, because they're not wars we want to fight. They're wars we want to prevent. And we can only prevent them by bringing these prophetic truths and getting larger and larger numbers of people to commit to them.